Welcome back to the Karshan FS show. This is episode 6 of season 2. We're back this week with a bunch of stories and a bunch of pointless incidents that have happened in our lives. One of the things that's happened in the past week is that I've gone off social media completely. And what I mean by that is I no longer check my social media accounts. I still have them, I still keep them. The profiles are there, like you will see I haven't deactivated anything. It's just that I've deleted the apps off my phone. And about a year ago, Coach did the same thing. And at the time, I was thinking कि मैं भी ये करूँ. And I have a very stated history with social media, which I'll get into. But I do want to go into this because I do think that social media has a very stated impact on our lives as in terms of the mental impact that it has, and also as the generation that was born before the internet. We have kind of seen life without social media and with social media. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
we're the ones that really are affected the most by it, because we were like the beta version. Everything was tested on us.
We were the lab rats.
Yeah, we were the lab rats, and like यार हमें तो बर्बाद कर दी social media ने. But this isn't the first time I'm doing this. This I hope is the last. I don't really know. Like I'm not. I wouldn't say that I'm very active on social media, even if I was around. Like I haven't had a post up on Instagram for like the past 6 years. And I very rarely post or put anything out there publicly, but at the same time I was around. Like you could message me and get a reply. I no longer do that, and I think this is something that I should have done earlier, but we'll go into this. But just to set the timeline, like in terms of social media, first exposure to it was MySpace and Orkut, which was around 2006. And we were heavily involved in that. And once Orkut kind of came to a close, and we've kind of gone into Orkut on its own episode back in season 1. So once Orkut came to a close, Facebook came around, and by the time Facebook came around, I personally realized that I had a problem with social media. So I went off it. Like I did not join Facebook till I graduated high school. I was off all social media. I was on Instagram in 2011, which is when it like came out. I was on Snapchat as well, which is also when that came out. But those were new. Like those weren't established to a point where you could have all your friends there. It was just like one or two people, and that was fine with me. I just didn't want to be connected to everybody. I was on Twitter as well in 2011. But 2012 was when I came back to social media, and my whole thought process the whole time was that I didn't want social media affecting my life in terms of where I wanted to be in my education and sport and whatever I wanted to do in school. Like being off social media really helped me because I wasn't, completely consumed by the fact that I wanted to have a social life, which was on the internet. Like I did have a decent social life in person, but at the same time, I didn't want to be completely on the internet for the whole time. And I have a problem. I have a problem with moderation in general, which is why I'm a very all or nothing person. I do nothing in moderation. So social media is something that if you go all out on, it will honestly destroy you. And since 2012, the reason that I've not been bothered too much by that is हम वैसे भी बर्बाद हो रहे थे. तो ये सिर्फ एक और बात है. But in the recent past, and since 2012, a lot more social media has come across, but we're still on like the main things, like Instagram, Snapchat. Those are still the things that are going on. Facebook is still alive. But one of the problems that I think I'm facing now is that I'm going through a tough time personally. And social media really makes you conscious of the fact when you see, other people. Like life is great when you're winning. Like you couldn't care about what's going on social media. You're the star of the show. But when life kind of isn't going your way, what happens is it kind of really, that kind of comparison or being able to see, people your age or people you grew up with do something that you're not able to do, that plays on your mind, and I do take that as motivation. Like, I don't shy away from, people are doing better than me. But social media, in terms of what it represents, it's always representing the highlights of somebody's life. I do this, like, if you look at my social media profiles, you get absolutely no idea of who I am. It's all very it's all like सिर्फ साया है. It's not me. सिर्फ एहसास होते हैं मेरे. Like, anybody who knows me off social media does not know me at all. You might as well not have met me. But the impact that has is everybody's doing the same thing, so you kind of end up watching a lot of things where you're not really looking at life as it's supposed to be. Life on social media is different, and life itself is quite different. So I've kind of decided to go off for now. I don't know if I'll come back. I really have no reason to. कि जो भी मुझे पता है, like, since 2015 I've known who was important in my life, and I've kept that way. And I don't, like, it's been a week, and I'm not having too many withdrawal symptoms. But at the same time, the reason, by the way, that I keep my profiles active is because the moment I deactivate, people will come looking for me in real life, and I don't want this either. Like, मैं काफी कुछ लोग को जानता हूँ. So if they do, like, send me a message and I don't reply, they just assume that I'm being a dickhead. But at the same time, if they can't find me to message me, then they'll come looking for me, with my phone number or in real life, and I don't want that. तो इसलिए मैंने तो प्रोफाइल रखा है. But Karsh, what do you think about social media and what it's done to us, man?
Yeah, ये बात तो आपने वैसे सही की है कि when times are tough and you look at social media, it definitely makes you look at your life differently. You start to think about, man, like, look at all these things that people are doing with their life, and even if you're someone who doesn't shy away from that, I do think the impact it has on you is negative, because it makes you kind of discontent with where you're at right now.
Yeah.
And for me, man, that's just not like that's something I'm not trying to do at the moment. Like, even like if you're subconsciously comparing yourself to others, it does take a toll on your on your well-being. And even though it shouldn't, because people only post the things that like they want other people to see. Like the times that are tough, they're not really going to post about those, on social media.
Yeah.
So you only see like the high points of everyone else's life, and you compare that to, like, where you're at the moment with all the highs and lows.
Yeah.
And for me, man, the big thing is that it's just like I find it to be like a real waste of time. Like, I feel like if I'm going to spend time doing something, I should be getting something out of it, Like,
that's a great
like
point.
when I watch
you
know what I mean? Like, when you watch a show or a movie, you feel entertained, or you feel like you've like learned something, like same with a documentary, or like watching a documentary or reading a book.
Yeah.
Even watching a show for that matter, you feel like you've grown in some way, or like you've, it was a good investment of your time.
Yeah.
Whereas with social media, man, if I spend like a couple hours like browsing, right? Which you can very easily do, like it's easy to go down rabbit holes there.
Yeah.
You just feel like, what the fuck did I do with my time?
I agree so much. And one of the things that I want to say is, as somebody who's like grown up with social media becoming a thing in their lifetimes, I have been somebody who's established a few pages of my own. And what I mean is, when I was in university, Instagram was becoming a thing. So the university Instagram pages and all of that were something that I pioneered personally. Like, at some point I had the username and password, and an account that had 0 followers. I've seen that become 100, I've seen that become 1,000, I've seen that become 10,000, 30,000, and so on. So even now, like in terms of business, I still use social media. I can see how social media for business is a good thing. I don't disagree. Like, I use it for all my businesses. It's very profound. Like, most cafes that I go to, I used to find them on Instagram, right? So and even my businesses, like a lot of people do find them on Instagram, or Snapchat or any of that, and it's a very powerful tool, and I do agree with that, and I still use it. I just have people who manage those social media profiles. They know what they're supposed to do, you know, they know what kind of content they're supposed to produce. And I also have like a few pages of my own that are not personal, like I have the page where I post poetry. Now all I've done is I've just handed that off to my social media managers, because I can just send them the content, and I do want to have a record of that somewhere, because by the way, it has like its own following fan base, and it's not like I don't want to let them down. I don't give a fuck. But at the same time, I want to have a record of it, and there are a few people, there are a few writers that I met along the way on that page, and a few other pages as well, where I'm not proud of it, but like it has a decent presence. It's kind of like the podcast, you know, it means something to me. Like I don't care what really, you know, how many impressions you have, how many followers you have. I like it, so I keep those things around. But at the same time, what I completely agree with you on is the fact that social media doesn't give you anything back, right? It's an investment that's a waste of your time. Now, in the past week, I've been watching the University of Virginia law courses, the YouTube videos, and it's been pretty interesting. But also at the same, like today, there's an educational website called Allison, and you can pretty much get certified for any courses. And like I tend to do a lot of educational courses and certifications, but those tend to be quite costly, and those tend to be in line with my career, right? But like at the same time, I would want to do those things for free. Like if I could attend all of Harvard's courses for free, I'd do all of them, right? But it costs a bit of money, because, you know, it's something that carries prestige with it. But at the same time, like I said, Allison's website, there's a few like this. They're like educational websites, and you can learn about anything. You can take a course, you can watch the videos, you can learn about things, and you can take a test, and it'll give you a certification at the end of it. So just today wasn't like a very free day. I did have a bunch of stuff to do. But I did a course on depression, and it was pretty insightful, and I did get the certificate. So if you ask me what I've done with my time today, I have a better answer than, you know, scrolling through Instagram, TikTok. So in the long run, if you look at it, like the productivity rate for a human being, if it increases because you're off social media, that's a great thing. Because like a man without, like if you want to do a lab mouse experiment, you know, give a mouse a phone and give the other a phone, but without social media, the one without social media काफी तरक्की की होंगे, like at the end of a month, at the end of a year. Think of how much you do at the end of a lifetime. What you're missing out on is like what your friends are doing, and like यार जो अहम होते हैं वो तो साथ होते हैं भाई, जो बाकियों की बात है, like I don't care about celebrity culture, what's going on, or any of that, so I don't think I'm missing out on too much. But at the same time, it is honestly like the challenge is, once you're used to having social media, it's kind of hard, especially if you have ADHD. You don't want to have a minute. I don't actually have ADHD, just for the record, but if you do, it's very hard to fill the time without your hands, without your thumbs twitching. And you need to, like, this is one of the facts that I was aware of. I needed to have something to fill that in, and it's pretty easy during the day, but like at night I'm still trying to figure this out. But if like Anthony Bourdain said this, you know, at the end of your life, if the man you are met the man that you could be, right, you will be satisfied. So I'm trying to be the man that I could be, you know, like I don't want to be the man that spent hours on Instagram. So, I don't know how long this is going to go on, but I agree with you on the negative impacts of social media that it has on a personal level, man.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And that's a beautiful way to put it, man. The man you are meeting the man you could be. Mm-hmm. You want there to be those two things to be like as aligned as possible, you know, and you look back on your and yeah, man, I think to accomplish things that are like you know, that lead to fulfillment in the long run, mm-hmm. You have to do a little bit of something every day, and something different every day, you know?
Yeah.
And over time that'll accumulate. I think we discussed this before, where it's like you know, spending even like 10 to 15 minutes a day on something, you know?
Yeah.
But if you do it over an extended period of time, it's like interest, you know, it compounds, and it like, you see at the end of year, you're like, you're actually like, you know, have developed a skill in something, And you really need to have that kind of like consistency. Like I read this quote that I think sums it up really well. That it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Oh, nice. I've read this. I like that one as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of how you have to look at things. Whereas with social media, and I think a lot of media in general now, where it's kind of like very bite-sized. It needs to be bite-sized for people to engage with it.
Agreed.
And it's meant to give you that short-term like dopamine hit.
Yeah.
Like every time you see a notification or like, you know, a DM or, you know, like it's meant to give you that like short-term buzz. Whereas like things that are fulfilling, like on a deeper level, those things require like, you know, consistency over time.
Agreed.
And you don't get instant gratification with those things, you know, like the gratification is very much long-term, like something you do now, you might not see the results of it until a year from now, you know?
I agree. I was apologies for cutting you off, but like in terms of something that I was listening to yesterday, it was a podcast with Ahmed Ali Butt and Junaid Akram. So exactly what you're saying is, you know, it's like the फर्क ये होता है कि हिलाना और लड़की को पटाना, right? One gives you instant gratification, the other takes a lot of effort, but at the end of the day, you know, the latter really means something.
Bro, that's the perfect analogy. I've never heard that one before. But that's the right way to... that's exactly it, man. I mean, on social media is just like hilaing your brain, you know? Like you're...
वाकई यार, मैं तो सोच रहा था कि यार, मैं खुद सोच रहा था मैं कब तक हिलाते रहेंगे. थक गया मैं.
But you're like you're jerking your brain off, and the jizz is like the dopamine. You know?
Oh good God damn it. I hope nobody hears this. But at the same time, काफी यार वाकई सच है, मगर at the same time कि it's true. Like if you look at, like I've been going to the gym 15 years, yeah. That's an hour a day for 15 years. If you do the math on that, that's what 4,500 hours, yeah. That's if I do 1 hour a day. If I do 1.5, or let's say 2, that's 9,000 hours, right? And you know, like the saying that says, if you do 10,000 hours, if you do something for 10,000 hours, you're really good at it. So it was always a little bit every day, but I've just kept going, and consistency is something that I tend to be decent at. So आसान होता है, but at the same time I get it. Like if instead of going to the gym, you know, 15 years I spent on Instagram, I would have nothing to show for it. Even let's say I got popular or something, I got famous, right? Now that wouldn't stay. Like social media fame is very temporary, can be taken away. And I've also not wanted fame, so I don't think that will make me any happier. So just like I would have just wasted 15 years on Instagram. And I'm kind of scared, like if social media could give me the numbers of how much time I've spent throughout my life on social media, I would tell you like how many ever, like it's probably around a year of our life, you know, but it's about, I would say it's about 30%. Right? No, that's wrong. It's probably around 5-6% of our lives. And if I were to see, you know, how much time I wasted on it, I could tell you, beshak, that all of it was useless, right? Now, I'd like to take that number down. I don't care. I'd like to get rid of it entirely, because, like, agar main farig bhi hu, even if I'm bored out of my mind, like, it's better than being on social media, man. Like, मुझे आज से कुछ नहीं मिला social media से. मेरी हम सफ़र के अलावा, बट वो तो अभी है पास, तो उसकी भी ज़रूरत नहीं है.
यार ये बात आपने बड़ी अच्छी की है, और उसके बारे में अगर वाकई में सोचें कभी ना, I'm scared to do the math as well, because I know it'll be like a very high number of hours.
Yeah. And
I'll definitely start to think of it in terms of opportunity cost in that as well, you know, because it's a textbook like economics concept, but you know, I'm not an economist, you know,
What do you mean, man? You're an
I-
econ major. Yeah, you can say that. I can't.
No, man, I studied finance.
Oh, okay.
I was,
yeah, apologies.
yeah, but no, you're right. Actually, I was supposed to major in both.
Yeah.
Like, I was supposed to do a finance and econ double major.
Yeah.
But then I declared my major as well. Like, after my freshman year, I was doing like a double. I was officially a double major. But then, man, when I got to intermediate econ,
Yeah.
and we've talked about this before,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like we love things when it's at a very like beginner level,
Yeah.
and it's like still interesting
Yeah.
and like intuitive.
Yeah.
But like all of that like disappeared in intermediate econ. Like, it goes from being a subject that's very intuitive to something that's like not intuitive at all.
I agree. It's very counterintuitive. Yeah, agreed. 100%.
Yeah, it's bad, you know, because it's like the whole reason I found it interesting, like at the 1000 level, you know, like Econ 101, Econ 102, and the 100 level courses. The reason I liked those was because you could study it and it would just make sense, you know, like you could look at a demand graph and understand it just intuitively, you know, like the higher the price, the lower the demand, you know, like that just makes sense, common sense.
Yeah. Do you know, like, one of my favorite quotes on economists is put 5 of them together in a room and you get 6 opinions. Or what is that say? Like, sometimes I read like economists take on the current economy, and it is so like subjective कि कोई भी बंदा कुछ भी justify कर सकता है. जैसे वकील है भाई, like it doesn't matter, you know, कि बंदे के नाम क्या है, Raghuram Rajan, like he could say one thing and then you'd hear somebody else completely deny that, and both the schools of thought, you know, like neither of them are completely right. It's very hard to make sense of macroeconomics. Even at their level, I think they're just opinionated. I don't think they've got the answers.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. I think, you know, this is something they discuss in economics itself as well. Right. Like, there's like there's 2 like strands of economics, you could say. There's like normative.
Yeah.
What is it? There's like positivist and there's normative.
Yeah.
So there's like some economics is like it's kind of like a science where, you know, there are rules that economies, you know, kind of follow.
Yeah.
Like with interest rates and bond prices, right? Like that's like a mathematic relationship, you know. Yeah. And like if interest rates go up, bond prices will come down, you know. It's just like a mathematical relationship. That's just how the bond market like is priced. But then when you get to other things, other side of economics, a lot of it is like normative, you know, which is where it is subjective, where, you know, you're coming at it from a position of like for example, should there be a universal basic income, you know?
Oof.
Like if you ask that question to most economists, like Milton Friedman was in favor of that.
Yeah.
Or many other economists, but then there's no like right answer to that, you know, like there's no it really depends on your values, you know, and your principles and that's what's called normative, right? Because it's based on your norms. So if you agree, for example, that every person in a country deserves to, you know, to have like afford like, you know, a living, regardless of whether they work or not, then you would or any kind of like what your values are there, you know, it's completely like a normative question. But definitely on the other side of economics, you know, and that I think that's where like a lot of like bond traders, you know, that's why they're econ majors, because what you're dealing with is complete like are like fixed variables, you know, and like fixed relationships, and what you're studying feels much more like a science than like, you know, than like a political like question.
Agreed. And there is a Friedman school of thought, isn't there? Because I see a lot of people just agree or disagree on a lot of basic things, which I'm not sure if I'm right on that one, but I have read a few opinions on that.
Mhm.
But
Even something.
yeah, go
No,
on.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, go on, man.
Even something like taxes, right? Like how high should taxes be? And like, that's again a question of like, what school of thought you subscribe to, There's no real right answer to that.
True.
And, but then, economics in general, man, just starts to get very like, very not intuitive after a point. And, once I saw that, once I took my first intermediate course, I was like, yeah, man, this is like, at that point we were just doing calculus. That's how it felt.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, man, this is not what I signed up for. So I ended up dropping the econ major and just doing finance,
Right.
which I think in hindsight was much better as well, like, I learned skills that I still use in like my day to day, and I've used even in like, as part of work, like, it definitely gives you like some good Excel skills, like, which I think is always going to help you.
I always appreciate a good Excel sheet, but I want to say this just because it's going to sound weird, but I've actually spent a lot of time studying both finance and econ. Like
No way.
I've done the CFA course. I just haven't taken the exams yet. Yeah, all three levels. I just haven't taken the exam yet because I don't need to, But I've also studied econ because I was really into it. And I will say this, man, both of those majors, the more you get into it, the harder it gets. Like even finance, I'm sure at an intermediate level, it might make sense and it might be a little bit less math, but it's not intuitive, Like I can look at, a financial statement of a company and them saying, this is our earnings before income tax, before depreciation, before all of that, amortization, and that makes sense to me. But the more you go into it, into asset classes, into inventory, and it's beautiful because it becomes so subjective. It's no longer math. You kind of figure out, if you're really good at this, you can be a great con man with a white collar, like financial crime, white collar crime is something that I'm really intrigued by, and I understand why. It's really easy to do. Like I get it. Like I would definitely be accounting for the mafia or something like that because it's beautiful. There's a show called Ozark. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it's a guy.
Oh, dude, I've seen the first couple episodes. It's really good.
Yeah, so it's exactly.
Oh, like the cartels.
Yeah,
he gets caught up with them. He's like their finance guy, right?
Exactly.
Like doing all the laundering for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, dude, it's an interesting show, man. Like, and it's funny, bro. Like, so I've taken a few courses that are that were on financial crime specifically.
Nice.
Like, it's funny, man. But when I did a business degree, like I didn't really have like any of these courses. In Australia, though, I had one course on. It was called International Financial Crime.
All right.
And it was like it was both a law course and a finance course. So nice. They would study like money laundering, for example, both from like a financial perspective and a legal perspective. Like from a legal perspective, what would constitute financial? What would constitute insider trading, for example?
Yeah.
So from like a legal, it was fascinating stuff, Meg. This is like very analytical, but it was like, what if you're like, say, the janitor at a company, right?
Yeah.
And you find some like insider information in like the trash can.
Yeah.
And then you make trades based on that and then make a profit. So like, does that constitute insider trading? And then like from a legal perspective in Australia,
right.
And it depends on like what jurisdiction you're in.
How?
But I can't remember what it was. But in Australia, it I think would not constitute a financial crime.
How come?
Because, or no, in Australia it would because then they acted based on the information.
Yeah.
Whereas I think in the U.S. or some other jurisdictions it would not.
Yeah.
Because for it to be insider trading, you have to be an insider.
Insider of the company, yeah. Because like
that's right.
You see a lot of congressmen get inside information. They're trading on it, and it's fine in the U.S. But honestly, from a legal standpoint, that makes no sense because like insider information is insider information. Like for example, if I was the CEO of a company and my wife, or like let's not say my wife because that can get tricky, but somebody I know, right? I could easily give them information. They could trade off it, and
Exactly, yeah.
that'd be fine. Like what kind of it's like a law that's just meant to be broken. Like what's the point?
No, man, exactly, and that's why, like in America, it's so common for like it's legal at that point,
Yeah.
like you can, it's perfectly acceptable to do that. And man, and not as part of this course, but I took another one that was called like trading and financial markets. And the guy who taught it was really good. He was like a former like trader. I can't remember like what he did, but yeah, he was a trader for like a firm, like a proprietary trading firm.
Right.
And yeah, man, he like studies insider trading. Like when he got his PhD, that was his like area of research.
Nice.
And they have ways to measure it, like not the extent of insider trading in a country. They can measure it because like they look at something like when a company's announcing its earnings,
Yeah.
or when it's going to make like a major announcement, like its quarterly earnings. You can start to see like even before the earnings are announced, like close to the earnings date,
Yeah.
the price will start to go up or down,
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
And the thing is, man, it's exactly how you said it works. Like, it's not even, insiders are not acting like on their own name.
Yeah.
Like they'll give the information to someone else,
Yeah.
who will then, make a profit, and then they get a share of it,
Exactly.
And it's like tipping, that's the crime, which is also a crime and according to, according to the books.
Yeah.
So it's usually through tipping that, you're able to like, this starts to go up even before the thing has happened. Cause like, it just shows you it happens in every financial market. It's just a lot of it goes undetected because, they have ways to like, do it secretly.
Yeah. I mean, we could figure that out, Like if you were the CEO of something and I was trading on your behalf, we could easily do it all undetected,
Easily, man, for sure. And the only times that people have been caught, it's when, they were under surveillance. So, like the FBI or the IRS or whatever agencies are involved in this, they suspected that there was money laundering, had an investigation. And there's that one guy, man, in America who went to jail for insider trading. He was like of Sri Lankan origin. I can't remember his name.
I remember.
It was like, it was like Raja Ratnam, I think.
Yeah. Sun Energy. Is that the company?
I can't remember what it was called, but they caught him on the phone. Like they had like, they tapped his phone and stuff.
Yeah, and that is so dumb, dude. Like I'm telling you, even now when we're discussing this, I know exactly that we would not fall prey to that. It's got to be completely coded. It's got to look like a normal conversation, and nobody should be able to figure out what exactly. It's got to look like common bullshit between two guys. There's got to be no trace. Like I would not use a phone. I would not leave a paper trail. And I would also not establish a pattern.
No doubt, man. But you'll be surprised, dude. Even if you take all the precautions, even the most minor slip, like if you're being watched for a very long time, even the most minor slip can work against you, and like be grounds for like probable cause.
I agree. I think we could take them on a long chase. I don't think we'd get away with it.
No, definitely, man. Because what eventually happens is they get to someone in your inner circle.
Yeah.
So obviously you can't do this in isolation, right? Like you have to do it in coordination with other people.
Yeah.
What happens often is they get to someone in your inner circle and then flip them. you know, they always have someone on the inside who's able to give them information.
Yeah.
And like you know, like someone can wear a wire, for example, you know, or they can like, you know, pass on information. You might be working with like an undercover guy even, you know, without even realizing it, or a guy who's been made an informant, you know, and often these investigations, bro, they take years.
Yeah.
Like it takes years to build a case against someone.
Yeah.
And in that very long period of time, man, over the course of years, like there's a high chance that you'll slip up and like make some kind of minor error, you know?
I agree.
And if someone's been,
Yeah.
if you're under surveillance, that alone can like, you know, be grounds for a case against you.
I agree. It's very much like the mafia, and we've seen mob bosses get taken down easily. So
Exactly.
over time, I think the survival rate for everyone drops to zero, which is just a quite problem.
Yeah.
But
That's exactly it, dude.
but I get it. Like I honestly think we could take them on a long chase, but I think we would get caught at some point. The
sure.
the key is when you get caught to, you know, have everything stashed away so that they can't. First of all, it's a white collar crime. You're not going to do hard time. You can probably get a plea bargain, you know. Secondly, you've got to make sure that none of the money is, you know, something that they can repossess. You've got to have it all somewhere that they can't take it away.
Yeah, and that's often what they do, right? Like they have it tucked away in like shell corporations, somewhere in like the Bahamas or, you know, the British Virgin Islands, you know.
Yeah, Cayman Islands,
and,
all this, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All of these, you know, that's another thing we studied as part of the course, like the
Tax havens?
like the importance of tax havens, but also shell corporations.
Oh yeah.
So tax havens are legal, right? Like you're allowed to like transfer your money to like an offshore account, and like where
shell corporations, they're also legal.
But shell corporations, it's like you create like a fictitious company, you know?
Yeah.
So this is a company that doesn't really exist. And then what you're doing is like if you have to show like where this income came from, like if you have unaccounted revenue, you can show it as like a business dealing with a shell corporation, you know? So you have a company that's based in the British Virgin Islands, and it's not a real company, like it exists only on paper. But then you have like dealings, you know, business dealings on paper. That, okay, this month we got like, you know, made $10,000 of sales to this company. And then this is how much we of that was profit. And that's where this money came from, you know? So that way you're able to launder the money through like, what do they call it? Like overbilling and underbilling. That's something, that's one way they do it as well. Like paying more for goods than you need to, than their market value. And there's just all kinds of ways to like circumvent, you know, regulation, and it's
very gray, but it's not a crime, is it? Like setting up a shell corporation and doing business with an entity that doesn't have an office is immoral, but it's not illegal, is it? Like it's fine. Like it's ground for something, but I don't think that alone. Like if you can set up a company without anything, that's not on you, you know.
Right, but if you're using that to like to launder money and to like to launder proceeds of a crime, then that's where it becomes a crime, you know? Because if that money is like proceeds of a crime, like say even tax evasion, right? Like that's one reason people would launder money. To evade taxes. Or like, you know, let's say it's money that originating from the sale of drugs, right? And then you launder that money, then it's like, because it's the proceeds of a crime, it's a crime to launder that money, you know?
Agreed. It's the means to an end that is illegal, you know? Like, I agree. But,
but setting up a shell corporation in itself, that's not illegal.
Exactly.
But
it's pretty interesting. And also, like, I don't know if you've seen this movie called The Accountant, which is one of the very few good movies Ben Affleck has done in his lifetime, but it's pretty similar.
I can't say that.
Oh man, it's pretty interesting because he's a guy who has PTSD, and he works as an accountant. But he's like a genius, you know. He can figure out what's wrong, or what's
No way.
actually happening, and he works for the mob. He works for the setting of the movie is different, but his history is that he's, you know, like a forensic accountant for people who are doing this kind of shit. And it's pretty interesting to me because if I was an accountant, or not an accountant, but if I was a lawyer or if I was a finance professional, what would intrigue me is something like this, you know, because it's challenging. It's not just because it's illegal, but it's very challenging.
No doubt, man. And I find like both sides of it very interesting.
I
Like,
feel like
both,
you want to be the guy who catches, you know, Ben Affleck. And I feel like I'm on the other side of this. I want to be Ben Affleck, but like I know what you mean.
But no, man. If you look at like how investigators do their job, especially when they're dealing with people who are like super intelligent, you know, like guys who are running these organizations, or like who are like, you know, actually doing the laundering or the hacking or any kind of like shady activity, you know. They're like very smart people, man. You need to be like a brainiac to be able to hack into a security system, or to be able to like, you know, launder money without leaving a trace, and like keeping a low profile, and like not alerting the authorities. Like, these are all like things that require a certain type of person, you know. So it is very like very hard to do that, like even for an extended period of time. But then, man, building a case against them, I think is even harder, dude. Because, like, you know, someone who's, like, working super cautiously and, like, just is, like, you know, like, completely in control of, like, what he says, what information about him is out there. To, like, actually catch people like that, to build a case against them, to, like, unmask a hacker, for example, you know? These are all crimes, man. Like, whether it's financial crime or cyber crime, it takes years and like a very skilled investigator to like to catch these guys. You know, like, you need to have the pattern detection of like of just like a wizard, you know, to catch these guys. And then it's been done, man. There have been real life FBI investigations that went on for like years. Like they caught the guy from Silk Road, right? They caught like what's his face? Fucking man, Bernie Madoff, right? That investigation went on for over a year.
That was easy.
What was that? That was genius, though, man. Like 20-something years, he pulled that shit off for, man.
Which
like,
is surprising, you know, which is honestly like surprising.
Yeah, dude. That was another course I learned, but that was in sociology. But then again, sociology of like, you know, like criminology. Is also for of sociology. Like it's the sociology of crime, right? That's criminology basically as a discipline. So there was one course called it was called just financial crime. I'm pretty sure.
Nice.
Or no. Yeah, financial crime, like, but they talked about all of these different things there, you know, like money laundering in particular, but also like shell corporations and like Ponzi schemes, and like cyber crimes as well, which is big right now, you know. Like ransomware as well, which is a huge thing in itself. There's also like dating scams, you know, which are a huge like moneymaker, you know.
Yeah, but you know, it doesn't intrigue me. This is a problem. Like, ये छोटे scam मुझे कुछ अच्छे नहीं लगते. I understand what you mean. Like, you get a lot of money off it, but like, I don't know. Like, OnlyFans is a scam, yeah. So it's kind of like that. Like, ये मुझे तंग नहीं करता. Like, what I like. Getting back to what you're saying about the FBI, there's this movie which I think is called Public Enemies. I can't really remember. But it's an FBI agent and a mob boss. I think it's Tom Hanks and Christian Bale. And they're at each other's throats for a long time. It's not a lot happens. They're just trying to... It's a cat and mouse game. It's like The Sopranos, yeah? And I agree with you. Like, both sides of that are really intriguing. But to be the good guy, right, you've got to have morals. Now, to be the bad guy, there's a lot of, incentives to it. You make a lot of money, you lead a decent lifestyle, But to be the guy who, I mean, you might be able to do this because you're a good person, but like if it's me, I'm thinking what's really in it for me, what's the point of me? It's not easy to catch somebody like that, and to be able to do it if I'm that talented, like why would I waste my life trying to catch a guy when I know that nothing's going to happen to him? And it's just a waste of my time. Why wouldn't I, if I was a cop, I'd be a dirty cop, you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. But I think people enjoy the thrill of the chase too. Like when you talk to guys about even beat cops, for example, not like intelligence agents or like not, guys working on the investigation side of things, just like straight up patrol cops, when you ask them like what they like about the job, there's like an adrenaline rush to like that cat and mouse chase, like when you have a police chase in real life, right? Like when you're like on someone's tail and you're like it's like a high speed patrol, right? They say that the adrenaline that comes from that is unmatched.
No, like, I agree, but I know you've said this before, but both those people are psychopaths, man. Both.
They are, man. That's, I think, the point, a big point that The Sopranos trying to make as well.
Yeah.
Like when they show like the two sides of this conflict, right, so to speak, they both use like the same techniques to accomplish their goals. Like it's violence, manipulation, and like blackmail, straight up blackmail. Like that's what the FBI would do with these guys. Like and man, you have to admit, like in the end, who won the war between the five families and the FBI? Like, who do you think won?
That's a good question, but that I agree with you. Like the FBI did win, but like, who won the war on drugs?
Okay, that's a good question, man. But the drugs, man, that was stupid from the start,
No, and that was just very George Bush, yeah.
Exactly, and the thing is, the war on drugs is like it's something government started to appease people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas it was like there was no. It was kind of like a decision made by like Ronald Reagan and guys before him as well, where they were like, how do we appeal to like a conservative constituency, And it's like, well, one thing we can do is like go after drugs, and then that's like something we can and we can score political points that way. And then obviously any law enforcement agency is going to have to like comply with that.
Right.
So then, even if they don't agree with it and don't think it's worth going after. But yeah, man, if you think about purely just in terms of like, the five families versus the FBI, they managed to infiltrate these organizations.
Yeah.
Like,
and the RICO
to the point where
really changed things, didn't it? Like once.
RICO was the game changer, man.
I agree. I mean, it's hard to bring down like the five families. What you're talking about, like it's not relevant anymore, or in our lifetimes it wasn't. But there was a time when that was, impenetrable, man. And I agree with you. Like it's not easy to take on the mafia and win. But no, you've got to give it some. It took a lot,
Yeah, man, because it takes like it takes brains to do dirt, but it takes even bigger brains to like catch dirt doers,
Oh, wow. Incredible.
Because you've got to be a step ahead of them, man. That's the only way you finally catch somebody,
Yeah.
And really, man, there is a thrill to that chase as well. The way there is a thrill to any chase. Obviously, it's a little more adrenaline when you're like physically chasing someone, whether that's like running after like a criminal or like even chasing them in your car. Like cops will say that. Cops who've worked on streets like that. There is a certain thrill to that chase.
Yeah.
But I'd say it's the same for investigations, man. Like imagine the thrill of a guy who's infiltrated like a major organization. Like he's like
man,
he's like in
like you're living a double life. You've seen Donnie Brasco, yeah? it's very much like that. Like to be undercover is honestly something that is. But I agree with the adrenaline, but it also you're always in fear for your life. You know, you kind of lose what
That you are.
Yeah, and
But
you,
honestly, if you're on the other side, if you're purely like investigations,
Yeah,
where you're
that's
not
true.
like an informant or you're not like a
Yeah.
infiltrator, but you're still doing like the like forensics of it, you know, like financial forensics even,
Yeah,
or like you're the one who's like really building a case against them, you know. That's hard to do, man. Even the prosecutor's job in that case, you know, to actually like find places where you can, you know, catch them, find like weak links
yeah,
in what they're doing. And you have to admit, man, in the end, like when they got sent to prison, man, it was like for life, dude. You know, Rico, like that's what it did,
Yeah.
and they took away all your assets too, like you know.
yeah.
So like they had civil penalties as well. So you would now like, you know, have to pay like tens of millions of dollars to the government.
I agree,
And,
but dude, like on where were we, man? Yeah. So I understand how they won the war on the mafia, right? But like the war on drugs and the war on terror are both horrible examples of this. I don't know if you've seen Jack Ryan, but like one of the ways they counter terrorism is they follow the money. So there's a lot of finance majors, econ majors working in that field. They're looking for terror financing. But honestly, it's a horrible job that they've gone. But again, this is very George Bush. You can't just go into Afghanistan and try to wipe out terror from the world. Like, it's been decent in terms of what it's done with ISIL, but like, dude, terrorism and drugs. Like, I don't know if you've seen Sicario as well. It's a good movie, and like cartels, it's just like the way Mexico's run and the way cartels are. That is much worse than the mafia families, man. So,
for sure.
So it's
and that's a direct product of the war on drugs, you know?
Yeah, and so sometimes it's very counterintuitive. Like if you saw the FBI trying to take down the 5 families and they instead ended up creating 50 in every state, that would be just a dumb thing to do. So it's quite surprising how they managed to win in one place but then lost pretty much everything else.
Yeah, man, because I think both those wars, even the war on terror, that's something that was started to score political points.
Agreed.
Like from a purely like law enforcement perspective, it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But obviously, since law enforcement acts as like an extension of the government, it's like they're going to go along with like what's government policy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of cops and FBI guys, CIA guys who disagree with the war on drugs.
Yeah.
But because it was government mandate, their job is just to enforce the law, and they went along with it. But really, both of those were just political projects. The goal of it was just to appease the public. Like even with the war on terror, they saw that there was a climate of like fear and hate after 9/11. And that could be exploited for profit. And that's why they started that war, even the war on drugs, like they had a political motive to start that war.
Yeah.
But with the 5 families in New York, man, because New York City just being like, the financial capital of America, it was absurd how much influence, man, that in a like a first world country for just like in Mexico, it's different, right? Like you mentioned Mexico, but it's like not a developed country, It's like a lawless, like there are places that are completely cartel controlled.
Yeah.
And it's a place where even at the upper echelons of government, judges, chiefs of police, even they've been like bribed by the cartel, like the cartel members have put their guys in those positions, So there you have a level of corruption that's just like, where you would expect these things to happen.
Yeah.
But for New York City, man, in the 80s, for the 5 families to have had that level of influence, and then advance like the Western economy, it was just appalling, and they really did need to be taken down. even if like they, just even if it was only to like make the city safer, and New York today, man, is like one of the safest cities in America. It's like it had a reputation for being like the roughest city in the country.
Yeah.
Whereas now, man, it's like people applaud it for being like a place where you can actually walk the streets at night.
Yeah, I agree. I've been there. It's fair enough, and I can see like the kind of positive influence that war has had. But what was I about to say, man? Like another thing I just want to say. This has no point. Is that I've been on both sides of the aisle. Like back in 2012, I'll probably be one of the legalized dudes. And today it's something that I'm not completely for. So throughout time, I've had my opinions change on most of these wars and most, your eyes open to exactly what you're saying. People are just doing this for brownie points.
Yep.
But at the same time, the whole pointlessness of the dialogue is really something that bothers me. Because, like, the war on drugs and the war on terror, like if you didn't have the war, you'd be better off. And if you had,
Definitely.
if you had some other, there's better ways to resolve this. Like, especially drugs, I think is something that a lot of Nordic countries have done better. A lot of European countries have handled better, but the United States seems to be, making a mess out of it. But at the same time, I'm also, especially with what's happened in the recent past, where a lot of this has become legal in the States, right? You see it's adding to the tax income, but at the same time, it's also, I don't know, there was a time when, drugs were looked down upon, and now it's like, we've moved on past managing drug addiction to a place where drug addiction has become so common that an opioid addiction is something that a suburban mom has. It's no longer about kids in university. It's become part of life. So I'm kind of lost right now for like how much influence it has on our lives and what really its place is.
No, I know what you mean, man, and I think we can, if you look at the U.S., if you talk about opioid addiction,
Mm-hmm.
I do think that's a product of
Big pharma.
like unchecked capitalism. Yeah, big pharma.
Yeah.
Because they just have an incentive to make drugs that are more and more addictive,
Exactly.
because it feeds into their profits.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at something like Xanax, right, like which is such an addictive drug,
Yeah.
to the point where now, like, practitioners don't even prescribe it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it started off as, like, an anti-anxiety medication.
Mm-hmm.
But now practitioners don't even prescribe it anymore because it just has such a high potential for abuse.
Yeah.
And, high potential of addiction. Mm-hmm. That you're better off treating the same problem with, like, a different drug, But these things, I think, are a product of big pharma, and that's always been a contradiction in U.S. policy, where on the one hand they say that they're cracking down on drugs, and that they could warrant. But some of the most addictive drugs, which are actual like crises in America, like opioid, and and those are all legal drugs. Like that's the thing is like. They're not even like the ones that were policed under the war on drugs,
I agree. But we're closing in on the hour mark, and we started this one from social media. I don't think we're done on that. This is quite interesting, to be honest. This is foraying from economics to drugs, and the 5 families in between. This is the perfect definition of pointless stories and who we are as people. कि ये rabbit hole की भी theme नहीं भाई, but what do you want to call this one?
Oh man, what do we call it, dude?
I don't know. I don't think we're done yet. Maybe we'll just call it social media part 1 and then pick up in the next one.
Sure, man. Let's do that.
I think our message of this was just social media. The rest is just us having fun. And it's really proper, honest to God, like it's weird that we both know so much about Rico. Like no normal person who's not Italian would know that. But
yeah, It's funny you say that.
Yeah.
Man, there's an episode of The Sopranos, right? Like when Tony's talking to Melfi. Actually, let me tell you this on the next one.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Pointless Stories with Karshana Fest, Season 2, Episode 1, Social Media Part 1. We'll catch you in the next one.